Constantino,
Qué huele.
pound for pound.
Here we are with the man, the myth, the legend, Bernardo Osuna. Bernardo, we saw Manny Pacquiao, 42 years old, unfortunately, lost to Yordenis Ugas. Talk about the fight, your reaction.
I mean, he looked every bit of 42 years old. Father Time's undefeated for a reason. And more importantly, it's just, he's had these leg problems before where he's had cramping. But when you look at tonight, there was just nothing he could do because age just came upon him. And it happens to every great fighter. It's just a matter of how far can you push your body. He pushed himself heavily during training. You followed him around up the hills, you know, and in the end, your body breaks down. Boxing is a cruel sport, and it could have been worse. I mean, he took a lot of shots from Yordenis Ugas, and imagine if it had been Errol Spence. Thankfully, it was Yordenis Ugas, and it wasn't Errol Spence tonight.
Would you want to see Manny Pacquiao fight again? Obviously, he's at the last stage of his career. Or do you want to see him just hang up the gloves?
After tonight, I just don't know what he has to offer a Terrence Crawford or an Errol Spence anymore. I think that's a dangerous fight now for Manny Pacquiao, whereas before you thought he could maybe be in the ring. The 2-year layoff obviously was very hurtful to him, not fighting ever since he had that great win over Keith Thurman. And so, you know, you put it all together, you put the fact that he's in a political battle back home, and he didn't make any excuses tonight except for the cramping of the legs. But, you know, in the end, just sometimes you just got to know when to hang it up earlier rather than later. And I think this should be his wake-up call. And it seems like he kind of got the message in speaking with him in our interview. You know, he says, I'm leaning 60-40 towards, first he said, I'm leaning towards retirement after tonight.
Wow. And
then he hedged it saying, you know, it's about 60-40 because I don't want to, you know, not have that opportunity to fight again if I want to.
What would be a good farewell fight, you think? That wouldn't be...
I don't know, man. Look, Manny Pacquiao over 2 decades and winning titles in 8 weight classes has faced the best of the best. I mean, when we look at what we have in today's generation, nobody's going to ever do or come close to what Manny Pacquiao's doing because everybody's worried about protecting that, or I'm on this side, you're on that side. He went to every side and took on all the guys. I think the only guy he didn't fight is Terrence Crawford. Other than that, you look from the days of Marco Antonio Barrera onto, you know, the willingness to fight Errol Spence at age 42. I mean, you got to give this man credit for what he's done in sports, and young fighters are more worried about the paycheck and being the A side right now, and nobody will do what Manny Pacquiao did.
What will Manny Pacquiao's legacy say when it's all said and done?
That he's one of the greatest of all time because of the fact that he won titles in 8 weight classes, and yeah, that had never been done before. But the most important thing to me is 5 lineal titles, all the fights of the year, all the fighter of the year awards, fighters of the decade. But it's because of who he fought. He didn't make excuses for, I'm not fighting this guy because he's difficult. I'm not fighting this guy because he's a power puncher. I'm not fighting this guy because he's too big. I'm not fighting this guy because he said something bad about me. No, it's like, what's the best fights for me? Let's make them. And I think he's a promoter's dream in that sense. Now, he became a nightmare because he was, you know, making a ton of money and you know, it became hard for the promoters to keep paying him that money. But in the end, man, Manny Pacquiao, when you hear that name, you'll know he's up there with Roberto Duran, with Julio Cesar Chavez, Sugar Ray Robinson, you know, Muhammad Ali. And you know, that is a list that very few belong on. And Manny Pacquiao has his place.
Okay, anything you want to leave us with, Bernardo?
Yeah, I just think, you know, let's look at Manny Pacquiao and remember what he gave us, because he's a guy that's your size, Tino. You know, he started at 112-pounder and won his first title. Started at 106 pounds.
I can't imagine that.
But he ended up, you know, winning titles at up to 154 pounds against Antonio Margarito, breaking his face practically. And just all the memories that Manny Pacquiao gave us, the knockouts, and then coming, you know what I'm going to remember? That losses don't matter. Because this generation cares about the O. Who cares about the O if you've beaten nobody? That O is meaningless if you beat nobody. So they have to look at leaving a legacy and saying, you know what, when all is said and done, it doesn't matter if you have titles in 3-4 weight classes, because now they hand out belts like crazy. You know what? Fight the best, man. Prove yourself against the best. Prove that, you know, all the greatest lost. Floyd Mayweather's the only one that didn't lose. Ricardo Finito Lopez, you know, over 50 fights, had a draw in his career, an unblemished record. But nonetheless, leave a lasting legacy like Manny Pacquiao. He should be an example, because I don't think we're going to have another one like him, because Manny Pacquiao did it the right way. He went out there and he fought the best, win or lose. He wanted a rematch. He wanted another crack at those guys. I mean, he's a guy that I enjoyed covering a lot, because he was a gentleman. He always gave you the time after his fights, whether he won or lost. You know, fighters could really learn a lot from the way Manny Pacquiao carried himself as a pro.
All right, like Frank Sinatra, he did it his way.
And he did it well.
Thank you, Bernardo.
My pleasure, Tina.
Constantino Garcia here for Little Giant Boxing. Make sure you guys subscribe and follow me on social media at Constantino Garcia.